Who is watching the Lyle and Erik Menendez story on Netflix? Well, I just watched episode 1 and I have some thoughts. I have some thoughts. Well, I got some questions. Yeah, I have thoughts and questions on this first episode. So let's get into it. Episode 1 opens up with them on their way to the funeral. Lyle is coming across super cocky, confident, and crazy, while Erik is coming across as a whiny baby. In that scene, I initially made the assumption that Lyle is the one that developed this plan and he dragged Erik along. Well, as I watched the episode, it was the complete opposite. It was all Erik's plan. Erik wanted to do it as soon as possible. This was all Erik, right? So it was crazy to see how the episode unfolds as Erik confesses to his therapist. And I have to assume this is what got them caught. Erik couldn't take it anymore. He wanted sympathy. He wanted someone to tell him that he was not a bad person for brutally unaliving his parents. Not only was it brutal, it was all hatched after he watched a movie where the characters in the movies had unalived their parents. And so that made me realize Erik and Lyle are truly disturbed individuals. How did they get this way? Of course, in the first episode, we see the abuse from the dad and the mom. And I'm wondering how much of it is true. Like, not necessarily how much of it is true, but was that the catalyst for them doing what they did? And I think that's what draws me to some of these serial killer shows. I'm always curious to know how much is true. The writers and producers, what did they actually get from people that were surrounded by these people? Like how much of this is true? How much of this is a fact and how much is sensationalized, right? So back to Erik. Erik is the mastermind. Lyle is not so much the mastermind, but he's definitely deranged. He's definitely he's violent. You see the violence toward the parents, right? But we see his arrogance, we see his temper, and then I think we kind of get an insight as to why he's like this outside of the abuse. We find out that he's bald. He's bald at a young age. He's bald, like an old man bald. Like he doesn't just have receding hairline. He has the George Jefferson going on underneath that hair. So he's obviously overcompensating for that, I believe. And speaking of that baldness, since I've gone there already, that scene where that mama snatched that thing off his head, I was not ready for it. I was not ready to see what was under there. I was not ready to know that this seemingly handsome young man is freaking bald. On top of that, he has little metal prongs in his head where his toupee attaches to, which is wild. But in that moment of surprise and I guess comedy, you see how hurt he is. You see how just beaten down he is. It's affecting Erik because Erik didn't even know he was bald. Erik sees the pain in him. And based on this, I guess this incident, this is what drove Erik to hatch this plan to take his parents out. So back to the abuse element. We see the dad. The dad has a temper. The dad is humiliating them, embarrassing them in public. The mom is an alcoholic, but she's abusive too. She has her stuff with her too, because like I say, we see her do what she did to Lyle with the snatching. Um, and then we also see the act where they take them out. The act was so brutal. It was calculated. They were robotic in the way that they did it. No emotions were expressed, during it. It was just very task oriented. They went in and they just lit them up at close range, which was so shocking. I thought, when I first heard about this story, or even after, I thought it was maybe one or two pals, but they really just brutalized them like animals. And the mom, to my surprise, got it worse than the dad, because even once I thought it was all over, Lyle went in and gave her some more. Those people went out bad. They suffered. I mean, they suffered. And I'm wondering, was it because she had just snatched Lyle's wig off, a few days before? Is that why he gave her extra work? I don't know, but it was bad. And Erik's, session with his therapist, Erik did not want to describe his dad as abusive. Instead, he chose to describe him as domineering, controlling. And then when asked about the mom, he said that she was an alcoholic. She was addicted to him, and they just wanted to take her out to put her out of her misery. So again, why did y'all give her so much work if you just wanted to take her out? Why did you brutalize her in that manner? I mean, there was no compassion for the mother at all, which leads me to believe as episodes go by, we're gonna see the mother's participation in this abuse, and it may be even more shocking. So I'm here to see, what was the mother's part, because she got a lot of work. The whole confession to the therapist, the audacity of Erik. He wanted compassion. He wanted sympathy. He wanted to be told that he was not a bad person, although he did what he did. Again, the audacity of Erik. But the therapist, now that was a peculiar guy. My initial thoughts when Erik called him to schedule a session was he was terrified of Erik. He had a long history with Erik. He had been his therapist for years. He knew Erik was capable of doing this. He has seen or he has heard about the abuse, and he wants no part of it. Well, I was wrong, because we see this therapist really lean in and try to get the intel out of both Erik and Lyle. He was willing to risk his life. So that's another element I'm curious to see unfold in this series. What is this therapist up to? He was so terrified, but he was so thirsty for the information. He feared for his life, but he was willing to risk his life to do this or to get this information. He even called his side chick to come down to the office to either witness him get killed or be to live to tell the story as to what happened to him. I don't know. But the side chick agreed, which was crazy to me, because she was not only was she the side chick, she was the ex-side chick. But she showed up, child. She showed up and she was there and she was willing to risk her life for this man. But, by the end of the episode, of course, Lyle showed up. Lyle had to confess because Erik was not letting it go. But the therapist assured them, oh, this is confidential. I can't tell. You can tell me, this stays between us. And I'm wondering, how true is that? I mean, I thought the line is drawn on, for crime. If you confess to a crime, confidentiality goes out the window. So that's what I thought. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But oh no, we'll see. I'm going to continue watching this because, like I said, I want to see the extent of the abuse. I want to see what the therapist's role is going to be. So I'm very, I'm dialed in. And if you're interested in hearing my thoughts on the next few episodes. Please stay tuned. I will be giving my thoughts. And thank you for watching, and I will see you later. Bye.